If there is one subject I find myself returning to again and again after years of studying relationships and emotional patterns, it is this. Surprisingly, it is not about why avoidant people suddenly disappear, what their silence is supposed to mean, or even how someone can heal after going through their confusing push and pull behavior. Those conversations matter, and we will continue exploring them here on Avoidant Secret. But there is one question that quietly stays in the hearts of so many people. It is the question they often hesitate to say out loud because they fear the answer. They simply want to know this. Did the avoidant truly connect with me? Was our relationship real? Did they honestly build an emotional bond with me? Or was I the only one who believed the connection was special while they saw it as something temporary, distant, or easy to walk away from? Stay with me because the answer may completely change how you see your past relationship. What comes next often surprises people. By the end, many viewers finally understand something they have struggled with for months or even years. This question remains long after the relationship ends because the greatest pain is not always the breakup itself. Very often, the hardest part is the uncertainty left behind. Time after time, I hear people describe moments that felt deeply meaningful. They remember conversations that touched their heart, peaceful moments where they felt completely safe, and experiences that convinced them they had found something rare and genuine. During those times, everything felt real. The emotional closeness seemed impossible to fake. Then, almost without warning, everything shifted. The distance slowly appeared. Messages became shorter. Calls became less frequent. Warmth turned into silence, and connection was replaced by emotional space. Suddenly, the avoidance behavior seemed to tell a completely different story, one that made it appear as though the relationship had never mattered very much to them. That sudden change leaves many people stuck between two painful realities. Before we go deeper, ask yourself this question. Which version felt real to you? The closeness or the distance? Keep watching because the answer is not as simple as it seems. Living between those two opposite experiences creates a kind of emotional confusion that is difficult to explain. Your heart remembers genuine closeness, meaningful conversations, and moments that felt safe and unforgettable. But your mind keeps replaying the withdrawal, the silence, and the emotional distance that came later. It becomes difficult to know which memory should be trusted. Was the connection real, or was it only your hope making it feel that way? This inner conflict keeps many people emotionally attached long after the relationship has ended because they are searching for certainty more than they are searching for the person. Today, I want to help clear that confusion, not by offering comforting words with no foundation, but by looking beneath the surface where these patterns actually begin. Real understanding lasts much longer than temporary reassurance. When you finally understand what is happening underneath the behavior, many pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together. Stay until the end, because one simple shift in perspective can completely change how you interpret everything that happened. The reality is that emotional bonding for an avoidant usually does not look the same as it does for someone with a secure attachment style. That is where many misunderstandings begin. People naturally expect attachment to look familiar. They expect steady communication, clear affection, consistent closeness, and obvious emotional expression. But avoidant individuals often experience connection in a very different way. Their feelings can be real while their behavior appears distant. Their attachment can exist even when they seem to be pulling away. If you judge their emotional world only by the signs you would normally expect, you will miss important evidence again and again because you are looking through the wrong lens. Understanding this different emotional language does not excuse unhealthy behavior, but it does explain why so many people leave these relationships feeling confused and questioning everything they experienced. And that is exactly what we are going to explore together next, because once you recognize these hidden patterns, many moments that once seemed impossible to understand will suddenly make much more sense. Before we look at the specific phrases an avoidant person may say after forming a real emotional bond, it is important to understand what bonding actually feels like from their point of view. Without that understanding, the words and behaviors we are about to discuss can easily be misunderstood. Many people expect emotional attachment to look warm, open, and comforting from the beginning. But for someone with an avoidant attachment style, the experience is often very different. It is rarely peaceful or easy. Instead, it can feel confusing, uncomfortable, and even unsettling. Their inner world has been shaped for years around keeping emotional distance. Those protective walls did not appear overnight. They were built little by little through painful experiences and strengthened over time until they became part of everyday life. Deep inside, often without realizing it, they believe those defenses keep them safe because vulnerability once felt risky, overwhelming, or emotionally expensive. Distance became security, independence became comfort, relying only on themselves became the way they survived emotionally. So when someone unexpectedly breaks through those defenses and becomes truly important, it is not experienced as a simple love story. It can feel as though their entire emotional system has been shaken. No matter how hard they tried to stay independent, someone has entered a place inside them that was never meant to be reached. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Understanding this one idea can completely change the way you look at an avoidant person's actions. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that another person has become deeply important to you without you ever planning for it. They appear in your thoughts throughout the day. Your mood changes because of them. Their absence feels different than anyone else's, and suddenly they matter far more than you expected. For many avoidant people, this realization is not exciting at first. It feels overwhelming. Instead of feeling like a joyful beginning, it can feel like losing control over something they believed they had managed for years. It is almost as if an emotional door they kept locked has quietly opened on its own. That experience can feel more like an unexpected interruption than a welcome arrival. And once that level of attachment develops, turning those feelings off is far more difficult than most people imagine. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings people have about avoidant individuals. From the outside, they may look distant or detached, but inside, they may be struggling with emotions they do not fully understand or know how to manage. Keep watching because the next part reveals one of the earliest signs that this hidden attachment is already taking shape, even when their behavior seems confusing. Because of this inner conflict, genuine bonding usually appears in quiet and unexpected ways. Instead of making dramatic declarations of love or constantly reassuring someone with emotional words, avoidant people often express attachment indirectly. Their feelings are hidden beneath ordinary conversations, small comments, and moments that seem unimportant unless you know what to listen for. One of the earliest verbal signs that an avoidant has formed a meaningful emotional bond often sounds surprisingly self-critical. Rather than openly saying how much they care, they begin sharing uncomfortable truths about themselves. You might hear them say things like, "I'm not very good at relationships. I've always done better on my own. I don't really know how to make this work." Or, "I'm probably going to ruin this." At first, these sentences can sound like simple insecurity or passing thoughts, but they often carry much deeper meaning. They are not just talking about relationships. They are quietly revealing the fears they normally keep hidden. This is where many people miss the signal because they focus only on the words and overlook the courage it takes for an emotionally guarded person to say them out loud. When an avoidant person voluntarily shares these personal weaknesses without being pushed or pressured, they are exposing a part of themselves they usually protect more carefully than anything else. They are allowing you to see behind the emotional armor, even if only for a brief moment. They rarely do this in a dramatic or obvious way. Instead, they reveal their vulnerability indirectly, almost hiding it inside a casual comment that can easily be brushed aside if the conversation suddenly feels too personal. That balance is rarely accidental. Their words are both honest and protected at the same time. They are giving you the truth while also leaving themselves a safe exit if they begin to feel emotionally exposed. For someone whose natural instinct has always been to stay guarded, even this small glimpse into their hidden fears is a meaningful step. It is often one of the clearest signs that you have already become emotionally important in ways they may not fully recognize themselves. And this is only the beginning. The next signs become even more surprising because once you know what to look for, you will start noticing signals that most people completely miss. What they are really doing in that moment is giving you a small piece of their truth while quietly keeping away to protect themselves if things go badly. If their honesty is met with criticism, pressure, or confusion, they can step back, close the emotional door again, and act as if the conversation never meant much at all. So how can you tell the difference between a real sign of emotional bonding and someone simply making excuses? The answer is usually found in what happens right after they speak. When an avoidant has truly revealed something personal, there is often a brief silence that follows. It may last only a few seconds, but inside that silence, something very important is happening. Their nervous system is carefully watching your reaction. They are paying attention to whether the vulnerable part they just shared will be accepted with patience or become another reason to rebuild the walls they have spent years creating. If your response stays calm, understanding, and free from the urge to fix them, question them, or force a deeper conversation, something powerful begins to happen inside. Their mind records a new emotional experience. It starts to learn that opening up did not end with rejection or shame. It discovers that being vulnerable did not mean losing control or losing themselves. Most importantly, it slowly begins to believe that this person may be safe enough to trust with the parts they usually keep hidden. That quiet realization often strengthens the emotional bond far more than either person realizes, even if the conversation quickly moves on to something completely different. Stay with me because the next sign is one that surprises almost everyone, and once you notice it, you may never look at these interactions the same way again. The second sign of genuine emotional bonding is something I like to call selective emotional memory. It often catches people completely by surprise because it seems so ordinary on the surface. Imagine sharing a random story during a casual conversation. It could be a childhood memory, a funny moment, a passing opinion, or a small detail about your life that did not seem important at all. Weeks pass, sometimes even months. You probably forget you ever mentioned it. Then one day, completely out of nowhere, the avoidant brings it up. Not in a vague way, not with missing details. They remember the situation, the conversation, and sometimes even the exact words you used. That kind of memory is rarely an accident. It points to something much deeper happening beneath the surface. Even though avoidant people often appear emotionally distant, many of them spend far more time thinking about the people who truly matter than anyone realizes. Conversations that seem completely ordinary on the outside often continue quietly inside their minds long after they have ended. This is why this behavior matters so much. It shows that your words stayed with them when there was no reason for them to keep thinking about them. Keep watching because this hidden habit reveals more about their emotional world than almost any love confession ever could. This kind of memory is one of the strongest signs of real attachment because they simply do not process everyone this way. With most people, they stay polite, engaged, and interested enough to have a conversation while still keeping emotional distance. Information comes in and goes out without leaving much behind. But once someone becomes emotionally important, everything begins to change naturally. The little details remain, not because they are trying to memorize every sentence you speak, but because your inner world has quietly become meaningful to them. When they remember something you barely recall sharing, they are showing you that your words continued living inside their thoughts long after the conversation ended. That quiet attention speaks louder than most people realize. It means you occupied space in both their mind and their emotions during moments when you were not even around. They may never admit how often they replay those conversations or think back to those small memories, but their ability to remember them tells the story without needing any explanation. They remember because your presence has slowly become important. And your presence became important because, without even noticing it themselves, they have started arranging part of their emotional world around you. That kind of attachment rarely happens quickly, and it almost never happens by accident. The third sign is one of the easiest to miss because it hides inside conversations that seem completely normal. I call it future inclusion. It happens when an avoidant casually places you somewhere in their future without anyone asking them to do it. Maybe they mention a restaurant they would like to visit with you one day. Perhaps they talk about a trip they think you would enjoy together. Maybe they describe an event happening months from now and naturally include you as if your presence is already expected. For someone with a secure attachment style, comments like these may not seem very significant because imagining future experiences together often feels natural. But for an avoidant person, this is far from ordinary. Including someone in their future usually means they have already made quiet emotional space for that person in their life. They may not express it with dramatic words or grand promises, but these small comments reveal something much deeper than they appear to on the surface. They are allowing you into a future they normally keep planned around themselves alone. And once you understand why that matters, the next sign becomes even more revealing because it uncovers what is happening inside them when they stop protecting every part of their emotional world. Their emotional world is built around independence. Long before a relationship begins, they often picture their future as something they will manage completely on their own. Their plans are usually centered on self-reliance instead of emotional dependence. The protective walls they have built do more than create distance in the present. Those same walls also guard their future. That is why casual comments about the future can carry much more meaning than they appear to. When an avoidant naturally imagines you beside them in a future situation, they are revealing that you have quietly become part of a place very few people ever reach. Without fully realizing it, they have made space for you inside the life they picture ahead. In many cases, they may not even notice the importance of what they just said. But on a deeper emotional level, it is often one of the strongest signs that a real attachment has already started to grow. Instead of directly saying, "You matter to me," they express it in the safest way they know. Their future begins to include you naturally, long before they are emotionally ready to admit what that truly means. Pay close attention to these small moments because they are easy to overlook, yet they often reveal more than long emotional speeches ever could. The next sign goes even deeper, and it may be the rarest one of all. The fourth sign is something I call territorial disclosure. It is one of the clearest, yet least common signs of genuine emotional bonding. This happens when an avoidant chooses to trust you with something they have never shared with anyone else. It does not have to be a dramatic secret or a shocking confession. Sometimes it is simply an old fear they have carried for years, a painful memory from childhood, a private struggle, or a deeply personal belief they have always kept hidden. The importance is not found in how dramatic the information sounds. The real meaning comes from one simple fact. They chose you. Someone whose natural instinct is to guard every corner of their inner world has decided to let you step into a place that almost nobody else has seen. That decision says far more than the actual story they tell. Stay with me, because this is where many people completely misunderstand avoidant behavior. They focus only on the words and miss the trust hidden behind them. Once you recognize that difference, these quiet moments begin to carry an entirely new meaning. Most of the time, what they reveal does not sound like a life-changing confession. It may be a small childhood memory, a fear they have never spoken aloud, a personal opinion they usually keep private, or a unique way of seeing the world that they have protected for years. To anyone else, it may sound like an ordinary conversation, but for the avoidant, it feels much bigger than that because what they are really giving you is not just information. They are giving you access. They are inviting you into a private part of themselves that almost no one has been allowed to enter. When an avoidant has formed a real emotional bond, there often comes a moment when they hand you a small piece of that hidden world. Yet true to their attachment style, they rarely stay in that vulnerable place for long. Almost immediately they may laugh, change the subject, make a joke, or act as if it was never a serious conversation at all. If your reaction feels unsafe, they want an easy way to retreat. That mix of honesty followed by emotional withdrawal is one of the most recognizable patterns. The vulnerability is genuine. The protective escape is genuine too. Both can exist at the same time, and understanding that can completely change how you interpret their behavior. What matters most is not only what they shared, but what it took for them to share it in the first place. Every emotionally guarded person has invisible walls, but avoidant individuals often spend years building theirs through repeated experiences of self-protection. Those barriers become part of how they survive emotionally. So when they allow someone beyond even one small section of those defenses, even for a brief moment, they are doing much more than participating in a conversation. They are lowering a wall that was never meant to move. Not for acquaintances, not for most romantic partners. Sometimes not even for the people closest to them. If your presence became the reason that barrier finally opened, even slightly, something meaningful has already changed inside them. Your consistency, patience, or emotional safety gave their nervous system enough confidence to take a risk it usually avoids. That kind of trust is never casual. It is one of the strongest signs that a deep emotional attachment has already begun to form, even if they never say those exact words. And now we arrive at the fifth sign, which may surprise you more than anything we have discussed so far because it often feels completely opposite to what people expect. Before explaining this final sign, it is important to make one thing clear. Understanding this pattern is not the same as excusing hurtful behavior. It is not a reason to stay in an unhealthy relationship or accept repeated emotional pain. It is simply an explanation of what may sometimes be happening beneath the surface. The fifth sign is what I call personal withdrawal. This is different from the usual distance avoidant people create when they need space. This kind of withdrawal feels much more emotional because the attachment itself has become difficult for their nervous system to manage. Instead of quietly disappearing, they begin trying to explain why they need distance, and those explanations focus on you. They may say things like, "You make me feel too much. This is becoming overwhelming. I do not know how to handle these feelings," or "Being close to you feels too intense." Listen carefully to those words because they reveal something important. They are no longer talking about relationships in general or people as a whole. They are talking about you. That difference matters. When there is no meaningful attachment, avoidants usually create distance without much explanation. They simply step back. But when a real bond has formed, the situation changes. Their nervous system is no longer reacting to just anyone. It is reacting to someone who has become emotionally important, someone whose presence now carries weight, someone whose connection challenges the protective system they have depended on for years. In those moments, they are not only trying to escape intimacy, they are trying to manage the powerful emotions your presence now creates inside them. And that quiet struggle often reveals just how significant the bond has truly become.